What's going on, everyone? So, in season 3, episode 4 of From, we see Victor share with Sarah a little story time, right? They build the little fort, which I thought was hilarious because even Sarah was just like, is all this necessary? And he's like, it's a fort, right? Like, it was great. Also, Victor was just going in on Sarah. I mean, Victor was roasting Sarah, right? When he talks about, his mother, and he mentioned Eloise being dead, which I thought was interesting. We hadn't had confirmation either way in that. But he talks about that just like Nathan, and then goes, yeah, but I didn't kill him. And man, Sarah was just catching strays left and right. But I digress, right? This season has been really built upon like Victor trying to unlock some of his memories, trying to kind of dig through the archive and remember the things that are important to maybe help save the people in the town. Right? The reason he wants to remember, the reason he wants to go through these dark memories that he has suppressed and just completely forgotten about is because the town is changing. Talks about how it's never snowed here before. And the last time that somebody went and tried to save all the people in his town was his mother, just like Tabitha's doing, and she ended up dying, and so did the entire town. And then it was just him and the boy in white, who that's where he met the boy in white. They became friends. And he says, like, hey, that was my friend, while I was here alone. But Victor is trying to go and dig through these mementos to really try to unlock these memories. And you see him bring and dig up this briefcase in episode 3 that now we know the details of in episode 4, which is when everybody died, when the massacre happened in the town. Victor wasn't able to bury all the bodies. So instead of burying all the bodies, the boy in white suggested, why don't you take little keepsakes from all the people and things that they held on to dearly, so that way you have that, bury that, and then that can be memories, which kind of is interesting that, one, the boy in white would suggest that. Two, was it something that the boy in white knew that eventually he was going to forget and would need to remember? That is something in and of itself. But Victor is trying to unpack these things, and we got some details, right? We find out a little bit more, again, about some of the characters that had died back then. We find out more about Christopher, as well as his ventriloquist dummy named Jasper. And we're definitely heading down that direction and that path to where Victor is clearly going to trudge through the tunnels in order to retrieve Jasper, who seems to have a life in and of itself, but we'll talk about that in a later video, because what I really want to dive into in this video in particular, of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, so let me know down in the comments below, has to do with how trusted can Victor's memories be, right? Because, yes, Victor remembering and him being somebody that has been there for 30 plus years and probably has all kinds of information and insight. And yes, some of the stuff has been very accurate, right? But a couple things about that. One, he's using things to remember stuff that he had suppressed, forgot, and basically locked away 30 plus years that he's remembering when he was a child. And, even things that we regularly remember as children aren't necessarily as accurate always as they would have been if you could just kind of go back in time and relive that moment, right? Like, memories are flawed in and of itself. We've all heard or shared a story and either ourselves or somebody went, it didn't quite go like that. Or, even if you didn't relay that to the person, you were kind of like, I don't really remember it that way, right? Memories in and of themselves are incredibly flawed. Now you're trying to go into very explicit details that could impact all of the lives of FROMVILLE, right? Like he talks about, like, this place is changing. This place is turning into something completely different. It has never snowed there as long as Victor has been there, right? So he doesn't, like, there's certain things that he's just not going to have information about. Also, a lot of his information and details is based on things that other people relayed to him, right? Like his mother, Miranda. We all know the telephone game, that by the time it gets to the third person, the story's completely changed. So how much can we actually trust and take Victor's words for things? Now, look, I have said from the moment I started doing these videos, the breakdowns and just theories and conversation videos on From, I've talked about how, like, I don't know why more people don't really press Victor for information and details, right? Because he's somebody that has been there from the beginning. But the people that have, you've seen, he doesn't really have the answers. He doesn't really know. He has to have something to trigger those memories. And look, those memories could be 100% completely spot on, but there are some things that are questionable. Now, there are some things that are incredibly accurate, right? Like, he knew where the tree was. But is that more of a memory, or is that more of like he knew the tree exactly because he's been there several times? Right? Where, we find out in this episode about Eloise. And we find out that, Eloise, well, according to him, died, right? Because he says, my mother and my sister died. But up until this point, there was a real question of, is she alive? He didn't say, I found my mother and my sister dead. He said he found his mother dead, right? Like, that is something, like, those little details matter. Okay, so now she's dead, or is she dead? Is she really alive? Like, do you think she's dead because you hadn't seen her after that night, after that moment? Or is that something where, no, you found the body just like the mother? Like, those little things matter. Those little details matter. Yes, there's some things that he's been spot on about, but there's also been a lot of stuff that he just doesn't quite remember or off, right? Like, every detail matters to a T, right? If you say you need to go left and really you need to go right, that could be the difference between you living or dying, right? That could be the difference between you escaping FROMVILLE or being trapped forever. And also, how much can he actually unlock? Because he kind of needs these drawings or these mementos or whatever to have things get unlocked. There could be a point where you just don't have those things. And now you're trying to grasp into the archive of your mind in hopes that you can dig those things up and kind of come to a resolution. But there's no guarantee that you will, right? Like, Victor also is very childlike, and children over-exaggerate, or children will tell little fibs, or children don't quite remember how things went, right? Like, if you're somebody that have children, like, children's recollection of things or perception of things aren't always the most accurate, right? Aren't always the most reliable, right? Like, but to be fair, it's really all you have, right? Because there's not anyone else that's been around at that point. But I mean, Victor couldn't even remember he had a sister. Right? It's not like he couldn't remember certain details about him and his sister. He completely forgot, period, he had a sister. Like, that's something that, I mean, he wasn't a baby, right? Like, he was old enough to have remembered his sister, and he didn't even remember his sister. And there's little details, little nuance that don't always seem to add up. And again, it's all secondhand. It's always like, well, my mother said, or this person used to say, right? Even Christopher. It was kind of led when Victor was telling the story that Christopher was the one that snapped, went crazy, and started taking out and killing everybody. But now we know that that's not really the case. Christopher could still be alive, for all we know. Christopher could still be out there, chilling. He could be in the tunnel. He could be somewhere. We don't know what happened to Christopher now. And on top of that, again, so when we finally got the close-up of the bodies and the people and everything, they were clearly all eaten and attacked by the monsters. It wasn't something where, or at least the way it appeared in this go-around, in this recollection, that, Christopher went off the rails and just started taking everybody out. So, again, even little details, even little stories, even things that have been relayed have had us believe one thing and we find out not. So what is it? Is it Christopher just snapped, became crazy, and just started taking everybody out? Was it only his mother? Was it not? Was Christopher a casualty too? I mean, he didn't even have a memento of Christopher in that case, right? Like, he has to go get it because it's in the tunnels. How did it end up in the tunnel? Now, again, the doll seemed to have a life of its own. Did it just get up and walk to the tunnels? Did the monsters take it to the tunnels? Did Christopher take it to the tunnels? Did Victor take it to the tunnels? Now, look, that appears like we're going to unpack that here shortly, maybe even as soon as next episode. But the point is that, like, Victor in and of himself has kind of been flawed at times. And he has this childlike mentality. And he needs things to remember. So it's like, how accurate are those memories? How much can you really trust? Because some of these things could be the difference, again, between you living or dying. Some of these things could be the difference between you getting out and escaping, or you being trapped here forever. You're very reliant on somebody that isn't very reliable, right? That's where the dilemma lies. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you think, like, yeah, it's definitely something of concern? It's definitely something that is just like, how much can you really buy in and trust that what Victor is telling you is actually accurate, that is actually true? Do you think, like, no, like, hey, even if he is off a little bit, or even if it is a little nuance, like, it's enough to kind of give you an idea. It's enough to give you something to kind of go off of, right? Like, I mean, any information is better than no information. I mean, assuming it's not all lies, right? But if it's something that you can kind of dissect and try to figure out and kind of navigate, and it's like, okay, well, we have this starting point, right? Even if Victor's 70% correct, right? Like, well, it's 70% that you have that you can now use to kind of make an educated guess for which direction you should go, or how you should approach these things, and so on and so forth, right? I do think that there are benefits to it, but it's just, it's definitely worth discussing, and definitely a bit of a concern. But do you feel the same way? Do you not? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out, so we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.